so you have it as a reference after I see that we are recording now. So talking about ABA. That's where we're getting started. I'm going back. So really ABA is the science of people and how people learn and why they behave the way that they behave. And we utilize the principles of learning in order to help people really create and achieve meaningful change in their lives. So something that's going to make a difference for them. And it really involves teaching behaviors that are really important and essential to everyday functioning. And so we utilize ABA in different settings. Primarily it's been utilized for providing therapy to children and individuals with autism. And so a lot of times it is out in the community, working with families in their homes or providing clinic-based services. And also in the schools, we want to make sure that this technology is available so that we can be providing the best educational opportunities for all of our students. And so, the settings have been varied when the research is there to really support the efficacy of ABA strategies across multiple settings, but also across multiple individuals. So I talked about individuals with autism. That's just really where our largest need is right now. But many behavior analysts work in other areas as well, working in, making sure that there's safety and how do we adhere to safety protocols, for example, or in organization behavior management, and how do you, run an effective business and things like that. So there's lots of different areas. And for today in our program, we're going to be focusing on autism and education, as those are the two highest areas of need. And this is a new program, so it's just getting started, and we have to start somewhere and then grow from there. Another area where we tend to get a lot of focus is on helping to decrease severe challenging behaviors. And so those are behaviors that will either put that person in danger or someone else in danger and prohibit people from engaging in community activities and being part of, everyday life, and including education. So it's the kinds of behaviors that don't allow students to stay in those least restrictive environments. And that's when we can come in as ABA practitioners to help set some plans in place to address those behaviors. So the mission of the ABA program is really to graduate the behavior analysts who are dedicated to excellence and are really prepared to serve our diverse community. We know that the needs of the community are diverse, but starting with, socioeconomic status and the many challenges that are faced with that, as well as, culturally diverse populations as well, and really to advance the field. So I think that as you guys probably know, a lot of the research that has been done, and not just in ABA, but this really applies to all research, is mostly done, with white communities. And so the fact that we are situated here in South San Antonio really lends us an opportunity to implement our interventions with a diverse population and really be able to share that information and help to further the field. So we have that opportunity here at the university. I wanted to start also with just sharing a little bit of information about myself, and I'm not sure if Dr. Katz is online or not right now. I'll kind of check as I'm talking about myself, and I'll ask her to share a little bit about herself. I see that she's on. So my name is Berenice de la Cruz, and I am the program coordinator. My background, just so you know a little bit about me and kind of where I'm coming from, is in special education. So I received my doctorate in special education with a specialization in autism and developmental disabilities. That's also where I received my formal ABA training. Before that, I have a master's in clinical psychology, and my bachelor's is in psychology as well. So I came from psychology and then came to special education, and have been working in the field of ABA since 2001, really providing bilingual services. I became board certified, so BCBA, board certified behavior analyst. We'll be talking about that. So that's the credential that you can obtain once you have a master's degree and meet all the criteria. You can become a BCBA. In that, I became a BCBA in 2007, and certification is fairly new to behavior analysis. It really started in 2000. And then I've been here in San Antonio since 2010. This is only the end of my second year at the university, but I've been in the community for 12 years. And so I'm very familiar with the community here and the great programming that we have. I've been fortunate to work in school settings, worked at a private school when I was doing my doctorate work in Austin, and have done a lot of consulting and continue to do a lot of training now here in my renewing role at the university, especially working with our Aspire School District. And let's see, I guess last time I count, I've supervised over 30 behavior analysts, and I really enjoy training and coaching and working with parents. So if you have any questions, I'll just remind you, feel free to jump in and pop in with some questions. And Dr. Sarah Katz is a professor in special education, but she is a behavior analyst as well. And so she is also helping us with the program. So Dr. Katz, if you're able to unmute and share a little bit about yourself, you can do that. Otherwise, I will jump in and do that myself.
I can go ahead and unmute
Thank
a
you.
little one at home. So camera
Yes.
is not always a possibility, but
Yes.
I can certainly unmute. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. De La Cruz. Like she said, I am Dr. Sarah Katz. Katz is my maiden name. Flote is my married name. I will answer to either. I prefer Katz, but both is fine. So I, oh gosh, relocated here now 2 years ago. It does not feel like 2 years, but 2 years ago to join the community at A&M San Antonio. And I've been here since July 2020, and I relocated from Las Vegas, where I was a classroom teacher for almost 7 years. And simultaneously, I was a BCBA. I got my BCBA credential that Dr. De La Cruz also has. But just a little bit later, I got that credential in 2018. And I had been a registered behavior technician before that since I was 16 years old, before I really even knew what the field meant, what my path would hold, what degree options there were. I just knew that I needed a job in high school, and the RBT credential wasn't even a thing yet. It didn't exist. So I just jumped right in and was one of the lucky ones who found what they wanted to do in their first high school job. So that's kind of where I started. And then since then, I have been in a supervisory capacity and have overseen behavior technicians in a couple different ways. I have supervised behavior technicians in schools. I have supervised behavior technicians for private companies who provide in-home services to individuals with autism, as Dr. De La Cruz was mentioning earlier. And I've also provided supervision to behavior technicians in more of a community setting in Vegas. I guess I would compare it to a rec center type space. So have worn a lot of different hats, and I'm excited to be part of this information session and part of the program, as I was sitting perhaps in many of your shoes, just ready to begin my undergraduate or graduate career in behavior analysis, not really knowing where it could lead, but that it could lead somewhere great. So don't feel like you have to have every next step figured out at this moment to be able to jump right into the field. So I think that's about it, unless there's anything else you want me to share, but thank you for letting me introduce myself.
Thank you, Dr. Katz. I think that was a great way for people to learn. And I think I'll just share a little bit about kind of how I got started in the field, because I always think that's interesting. But I was a psych major, and I just saw a sign and said, do you want to make a difference in the life of a child with autism? And I said, well, I like children. I don't really know what autism is, but yeah, it sounds good. And that's when I started working in home in ABA programs. Back then that was 2001. We really did not have very many BCBAs. The credential had just started. We had no one I was living in El Paso, and nobody was credentialed there. So we would have a consultant fly from Wisconsin monthly to train us. And I just fell in love with it. Like, we worked really hard to teach him. He was 3 years old, first child with autism that I worked with. And when he learned something, it was just like, yes, like I just, that kind of hooked me. So that's how I got started. And, everyone has a little bit of a different path, but that led to other work. As I said, I worked in the schools, and, I worked nonprofit prior to that here in San Antonio. So it's been a good journey. So I'm happy to answer questions related to that as we keep going. But I also wanted to mention that as I've been putting together this program really for 2 years now. This is in the end of year 2, and the program is starting in the fall. It takes that long to put a program together, but I really want it to be a community program. And so I reached out, and we have about 25 advisory board members from our local community and from across the country. And really, my goal is so that we can really have great input and representation about what the qualities are that we need to be teaching, the specific work trades, the readings, everything. And I wanted an opportunity to really get the community engaged in training the next generation of behavior analysts. And so I think we have a couple of them with us today, and I'll let you hear from them in just a bit. But this really was a thoughtful process in making sure that this program could be, could really, that you could come out of the program really ready to provide the necessary services, and already, even from the get-go, begin to build those that sense of community, especially locally. And so let's see, I think we have Janet with us. Janet, I'm not sure if you're able to unmute at this time, and maybe you just wanted to introduce yourself. People's phones are not on, so okay. Well, she may be busy, and if she joins us in a little bit. And Sarika, I think you're on as well. Are you able to introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about what you do.
Yes. I was just outside drop off, so I'm all sweaty, so I'm not going to show you guys my face. So I am a BCBA. I have a balanced child here in San Antonio, and now we have a Valley location. And I've been working with Berenice. She was my mentor when I went through the BC ABA certification and then BCBA certification. And basically we've been working with her and other members of the San Antonio area and Valley area, just trying to spread the word and educate families about ABA and as a Medicaid provider, just how Medicaid has impacted ABA in the community. But we provide services both in home, school, and in the community. And we've been in operation since 2016, just trying to, again, keep ABA on the positive side of things, and working with families in the community as a resource.
Thank you, Sarika. Appreciate that. All right, so now we'll move and talk specifics about the program. So today I'm focusing on the master's program, but we do also have a bachelor's program that is being offered. Our master's program is 33 semester hours, and you can choose from a concentration in either autism spectrum disorders or special education. The mode will be either 100% online, or you could do a hybrid where you could come and take some classes at the university and then also do some remote work. So that's a gist of the overall program. And then I wanted to take a few minutes to go through what are some of the classes that this program entails. So the classes that you see here, you'll take 21 required courses. So everyone will take these courses. And basically, these are the courses to meet the requirements in order to be able to sit for the exam once you complete your degree. And so everybody will need to take these courses. So starting with basically the intro to ABA classes, the concepts and principles in ABA, and then research methods. We use a lot of data collection in ABA, and that's really what the focus is, and how do we utilize data collection in our clinical work. And then I listed on here, and it is available on the website. I'll take you through that as well, just so that you know. We try to put all the resources on the website so you have one place to go to. But basically, as you can see on here in the middle column is the autism specialization. And so you take a specific class on autism spectrum disorder, and then you need to take practicum in research. And that hasn't, I didn't update that. That should be 6 hours. So practicum in research, you need to take 6 hours of that, and that will add up to the 9. And then
Dr. De La Cruz, we do have a question. I'm sorry, excuse me. The question is, if you already have a master's in special education, will this plan look different? And if so, how might it look different?
Yeah, so if you already have a master's and you're only interested in taking the courses that you need to become a BCBA, then you would be able to just take the classes on the left. However, you still need your supervised hours. So that's 21 hours. And then your supervised hours, you need at least 6, really 9, in order to meet the full requirements for the BCBA. So even if it's 6, that takes you to 27. The requirement for the degree is 31, 33. So that really is just 2 classes more that you would need to take, just so that you know what it is. But you don't need to have a degree in ABA in order to sit for the exam. But it just kind of depends. And people who just come in and take coursework, that program will run a little bit differently. So I'm hoping that people are interested, really in investing in the full master's. And a lot of the universities are starting to now not offer the supervised field work experience through the university, because there've been it can be difficult to do that. And we'll talk about supervision here in just a little bit. I'm just going to kind of go through some of these. I'm seeing some of these questions. I'm just going to go through some of this information. I'm going to go through it generally because I think I'll touch upon a lot of these, and I'll make sure that those questions are answered. So put a hold on that and then keep going with that. So you can see on here the concentration. So you would pick one of these 2, and that's how you would complete the rest of the courses. I kind of spoke to that right now when we were talking about supervision. We have a suggested plan of study. Kind of this outlines basically, it's designed to be done in 2 years. Assuming that you take 2 hours, two classes per semester, and then including two classes during the summer. And so there's the suggested plan of study for the autism spectrum disorder concentration and the special education concentration. We'll send you a copy of this material too. I haven't yet put these up, but I'll make sure they go up on the website. Hopefully by next week we can get those on. Regarding course substitutions, basically you need to take those courses that are listed on there. There's 1 or 2 electives depending on what plan you're on. And if it's not on there, you'll need to get that approved by me. Any graduate courses that you've taken that are already counted towards another degree, if you already have a master's degree, can't be used towards another degree. That's another frequently asked question that we get. And now I want to talk about credentialing and behavior analysis. So we're going to focus on the master's credentialing, which is the BCBA. So the board certified behavior analyst. That's where, the master's degree would really fall, that allows someone to work independently. Somebody with a bachelor's degree that can become a BCABA will need to work under a BCBA to provide services. And then the RBTs work also under the BCBAs, and the BCABAs can supervise RBTs. So the RBT is registered behavior technician. You need to have, minimum requirements, 40 hours training, undergraduate, high school diploma. It's basically like the most basic level of credentialing. And then a doctorate. So anyone who is a BCBA that has a doctorate as well will be a BCBAD. Okay, so let's talk about specifically about the designation for BCBA. So anyone, just so that you guys know, it's important that that the Behavior Analysis Certification Board, or the BACB, is the one that credentials practitioners in the United States. And so if you should definitely become interested in going to the bacb.com website to learn more information. They have a lot of information about ABA and credentialing and all of the requirements. So that's something you can become very familiar with. And then the term behavior analyst is one that is really reserved for people that are certified. And so people that are certified at the doctoral level and on the master's level will be termed behavior analyst, and people that are not certified shouldn't be using that term. So just wanted to mention that on here. So how it relates to your classes and your practicum, the requirement in addition to those classes that I showed you that you need to take on the left side, the 21 hours, you need to have some practicum hours where they're being supervised by a BCBA. And so you either need 2,000 hours if they're supervised at 10%, or 1,500 hours that are supervised at 5%. You can start accumulating hours as soon as you start taking classes. So once you start, day one of classes is when you can start accumulating hours. If you already have a place where you can accumulate hours, so that is determined by your supervisor. We are not offering practicum until next semester through the university. However, we have community relationships, and you might also already be working somewhere that has a supervisor, and we want to make sure that you are able to start accumulating those hours really early on. So this is the information session for interested in joining the program. But once we do have people in the program, which we already have people admitted, I'll be holding an information session before the start of classes to get everybody on board. But I'm really hoping that everybody will be in a position where they can start accumulating hours as soon as they start taking classes. And then I listed on here the handbook for the BCBA. It's got all of the detailed information about the requirements to become a board certified behavior analyst. It is about a 30-page document probably, and one that you should become familiar with. I'm happy to answer questions, but a lot of the questions about certification can really be found on there. If you don't already have a practicum site, as I mentioned, we have our community partners, a lot of our advisory board members, like you heard from Serika, she owns an ABA company. And so that's a possibility if, anyone is looking for, employment, a place to get supervised hours. There's different options that we have available, including our partnerships with school districts. So the university has the Institute for School and Community Partnerships, and they're our nonprofit, and they are managing several schools in the Edgewood Independent School District. And so we have that partnership as well as with the Aspire partnership, and already working with some of them. So it can be, easier for us to facilitate that practicum site and supervision. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to keep going because I think these are some of the questions that frequently come up. Are there prerequisites or specific degrees that are required? There are not currently any prerequisites. I would recommend, if you don't have a background at all in ABA, in education or related field, taking the undergraduate classes, the first two undergraduate classes, which are the ABA 3301 and 3302, before coming into the program, just to help you prepare. However, if you're looking at starting the program in the fall, those classes are not being offered in the summer because the program is starting in the fall, both the undergrad and master's program. So that will not be a possibility for you, but for people that wish to start the program in the future, that's definitely a recommendation. There is not a specific degree that you need to have, like a bachelor's in a specific area. At this time, we are opening that up to anybody that's interested in coming into the field. Let's see, what else? Admission. I want to go a little bit through that admission process. So the admission requirements are a GPA of 2.6 overall, or a 3.0 in your last 30 hours. However, if your GPA is not that, we can still review your application and may grant you conditional admission, which would allow you to come in and take the first two courses. If you receive a grade of B or higher, then you would be fully admitted into the program. Right now, the GRE is being waived, so you don't need to take the GRE. Other components of the application package is the application itself, of which we'll go through right now, your transcript, and we need a transcript of, last where you received your last degree. That has been taking up to a month. And the application deadline is July 15th. So we're trying to encourage everyone to at least start sending transcripts. However, if all of you are alumni of the university, great news. 2 weeks ago, we found out that you no longer need to request right now your transcripts from the university. They're pulling those up within graduate admissions, and that has become a really great thing because we're able to get that in a couple of days, and so that's really great news. I was really happy to hear that. It just makes the process a lot easier. So you'll need to submit your resume, a letter of recommendation from either a peer, a supervisor, a past professor, someone that can speak to you, and then speak about you, and then a one-page personal statement about why you would like to be in the program. And you would put all of that through GradCast, and we'll go through that. So you apply through GradCast. That graduate deadline is July 15th. We will possibly have spring admission. We have to have enough people to bring on to be able to offer all of the courses, and that deadline would be December the 15th. If you have any questions regarding advising, I would be your contact person for that. If you have questions regarding the application process, you would contact graduate admissions, specifically Marisa Zamora, and she's really great about returning emails pretty quickly. And I listed the phone number there, 1300, and they're available to really help you with the process. So I put the QR code here. If you go straight to the ABA website, through the QR code, you just click on it and it'll take you to the website. Or if you go to A&M website and you put in ABA, it'll take you there. So it takes you to this one step 2. This is our main web page where it says ABA programs. I circled it here. You'd click on there, and then that takes you to this page that says ABA programs. Then you have Masters of Science in ABA. Under there, it gives a little bit of description to learn more about graduate admissions. Is this Office of Research and Graduate Studies? That is a link. So you click on there, and that takes you to this one. Step 4 is where you go to the Office of Research and Graduate Studies. There is this apply here. You click on that button, which takes you to that next step. 5 is GradCast. So through GradCast is how you would apply. You would select your semester that you're applying to. And it's a pretty simple process. As I said, if you have any challenges with your application, reach out to graduate admissions. They're really great about helping you with that process. So the classes for the fall, we are offering the first 2 classes, 5301 Concepts and Principles, 5302 Research Methods. They're going to be offered as 8-week courses. And so you would be taking Concepts and Principles with Dr. Katz the first 8 weeks, and then you would be taking Research Methods with me the second 8 weeks. Right now classes are set to be Tuesdays 5:30 to 8:15. And as I said, you could take that, online. Okay, there's a lot of need for ABA. I just want to make sure that you guys understand, like, there is a lot of need, and that's why this program is being created, because we don't have enough BCBAs to provide services. Children are on waiting lists in order to receive services, and that's just clinical services. Sarika was talking earlier about Medicaid. The Medicaid rollout just happened in February. We've been working really hard on that to get coverage through Medicaid for many, many years, and that's finally been rolled out. And that's another set of population that is going to be very underserved, and that's just increasing the need even further. As well as in education, there's not enough people to go and work in the school districts. So there's just an incredible need, as well as we know that I told you that most of us work with individuals with autism, and the rate of autism just continues to increase. And so we're trying to really be responsive to that, which is why we're offering that specialization in that as well. And report after report continues to tell us that the demand for behavior analysts exists, and that it'll continue to exist. And I guess this is a little bit of older data, but back in even 2014, the behavioral the BACB was reporting that people were making about $65,000 as a BCBA. So it's a job that you can say you're going to be sure that you're going to have a job that's pretty well paid. You're going to be making a difference, and there's already a need currently. And that's why I want to make sure that people are already connected to places where you can get your supervised experience, but already really begin to meet that need. We definitely do have time for questions. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes so that you guys know what are some of the projects that we have that are available for you to become a part of. I talked about some of our partnerships in our school districts. Here we have Wendy. She's one of the BCBAs that works with me out in the school districts. And, we go out and we train teachers and paraprofessionals, behavior interventionists. With some of them, we're doing that basic RBT training. With others, we're doing consultation in the classroom. And so just an opportunity to get involved with that. We have Autism Lifeline Links, which came to the college about 9 months ago. And that really connects the community to different resources. So it's about, connecting communities to the resources. It's about collecting data to get funding for additional programming and just really being connected to the community. We have a program called Driving with Disabilities, where we're partnering with the state of Texas to let people know that on your state ID and driver's license, you can put a communication impediment that includes autism, deaf and hard of hearing, and then also on your vehicle registration, so that when a police officer approaches the vehicle, they understand that somebody that has a communication impediment is in the vehicle, and that communication might look differently. And so we're trying to prevent miscommunications from happening. We'll also be working on doing some training for law enforcement officers. I mentioned Medicaid. I've been, really involved with our Texaba public policy group. Texaba is our state organization, so Texas Association for Behavior Analysis, and we have a specific organization, public policy group, that works on advocacy stuff. And we've been working on, we got licensure through. You can become licensed after you get your credential for BCBA, then you just apply to become licensed in the state of Texas. And we were the 49th state to become licensed, so we came in pretty late, but we have it done. And that's really why we were able to get Medicaid covered, because we now have licensed behavior analysts in Texas. And so an opportunity to really get involved in that, and policy is such a big thing, and we need to continue to work on Medicaid. There's still so many issues there with, age restrictions and coverage, and a lot of things we still need to work on. So just want to mention some of those things. I'm going to stop there and make sure that I have an opportunity to take questions, and then I'll kind of go through the rest of this. So does any
I saw one in
some other questions?
Yeah, I saw one, Janet. I don't know if you wanted to ask it yourself, but if somebody's interested in hearing about the undergrad program, do we have time to do that in this session, or should she contact you to have an individual offline discussion?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we'll just make sure that we take all the questions we have for the graduate program, and then I think that we'll have time to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And does anybody have any other questions? I think I talked to all the questions that are on here.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm a teacher. So I'll be teaching next year. And I know you said we have to have some observation hours. Will that be difficult to do because I will be teaching?
Did you say about observation hours or your supervised hours?
Or yeah, the supervised hours. That's what I mean. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so like we would need to determine what work that you're doing would be considered behavior analytic in nature. And then
like for example, last year I had
some of that work. I'm sorry.
Because like, for example, last year I had to work with a behavior specialist for 3 of my students who had really difficult behavior issues, and one of them had psychosis. So it was a lot of, one did have special needs. So it was like all day long kind of thing. But again, I don't know if I'll get the same kind of students next year. So that's where it's like confusing me, because I'll be in the classroom. So it'd be kind of hard to see how you would get those service hours in, or I'm not sure what they're called in.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, we can follow up on a one-to-one, because that basically is what it would require for people, for us, like whoever supervisor in this case, it would be me, and whoever is, hopefully you have somebody there on site as well, so that you can get more extensive supervision. and you can do less hours. But yeah, so then the BCBA and myself would kind of help determine, hey, these are the blocks of time during your work that you would be able to count. And then you need both direct work and indirect work. So no more than 50% of those 1,500 or 2,000 hours can be direct. So a lot of the indirect work is like looking up research, writing up behavior plans, looking at your data and graphing it and analyzing it. And so not all of the hours are direct. In fact, as I said, no more than half can be direct. And so that's part of the work that we need to do, is kind of look at your place of work and see, how many hours would you be able to count for each week, and then make sure that we have the supervised hours to correspond to that, to then begin to track it. So as you probably would imagine, we have, logs that we keep track of all of this information in. But yeah, that's a great question. But in my experience, it's really been that we're able to count at least some of the hours that you're working with within already the work that you're doing as a teacher.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I do just wonder, because it's kind of hard to find the time while you're teaching if you don't know what kind of students you'll have. So then just gonna have to kind of wait to see how next year is, to see.
Yes.
But the first year, really, do we start counting the hours, or that's later on, like towards the end?
So as soon as you start taking classes, you can start counting hours,
Okay.
as long as you're, accumulating hours that will count, and that you have your supervisor. So as I said, the program, we're not offering that until next semester, the practicum course. But if you can already put those things in place, that really would be my hope for everyone in the program, that we can start accumulating those hours.
Those hours from the start.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I jump in for a second, Dr. De La Cruz, just
Yeah,
to
go ahead, Sarah.
input on that?
Dr. Katz.
My suggestion to you, I mean, I know it says Tyler's iPhone. I don't know if you're Tyler. But what I would suggest to you, because similar thing, I was garnering my hours while I was a classroom teacher, and it was very challenging. And you have to, what I would suggest to you is to go onto that BACB website that Dr. De La Cruz mentioned at the beginning of our session. Look at the task list for what is required, like the standards and such, to become a BCBA, and just try to think, maybe start to make like a little list of parts of your teaching day that could fit some of those tasks. Because I know I would look at, holding IEP or ARD meetings. That's not necessarily something, a part of your school day that could count towards your hours. However, some of the tasks and activities that you may do to lead up to that meeting could, writing behavior analytic related goals, graphing and analyzing data, certain things that Dr. De La Cruz was talking about. So I would encourage you, in little pockets of time here and there that you have to, go to the website. It looks like Dr. De La Cruz's screen sharing, and perhaps look at the task list and see, because so much of what you do as a teacher is behavior analytic. You just don't necessarily, it's not always the same terminology. So just go play around with it. But I don't know if you want to add anything, but that's just kind of my two cents.
Yeah, so that's great. Thank you, Dr. Katz, for jumping in on that. So if you just go straight to the website, BACB, it'll pull up the different credentials, and you click on BCBA here. If you just click on that, it gives you a little bit more information about requirements, and it's got some resources on here. If you click on here, this is the task list that Dr. Katz was referring to. Basically, these are all the items that we have to make sure that are covered in your coursework and that you will be tested on when you take your exam. So you need to, have a master's, have taken the specific classes that cover these topics, have your supervised hours, and then you submit all of that and you can sit for your exam. And so these are all the concepts that would be covered under there. You can kind of look through here, and the classes were specifically created to make sure that we cover all of these topics. I'm going to put this in the chat for everyone. If you want to go to that in case you want the direct link, but now you know how to get there. And then the other document that I really recommend that you guys take a look at, this is the handbook that I was talking about. And oh, I said 30 pages. It's 72 pages. It's quite extensive. It talks about basically everything. What do you consider in programs? What are your supervised hours? What is the eligibility? It goes and tries to break down all the information. So that would be a good place to go to. And we do have that link too on our website.
So this is something definitely we have to just make our principals aware, because it's going to be a lot of, like if it's during the school year, then they're to see the hours count and such, right? Especially if we're going to be observed.
Yeah, for sure. So, some of your hours will need to be supervised. That supervision can happen individually and in group. And you need to be observed, like actually doing the work at least once a month. And so it's that 5% supervision, depends on how intensive you can get it, 5 to 10% supervision, and individual supervision. Up to half of your supervision can be done in a group of up to 10 people. Yeah, there's all sorts of rules, but yeah, definitely. So we need to make sure that people are on board at your place of work, because we will be there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. De La Cruz, do you happen to know the average cost of the graduate program?
Yes. I would estimate it being tuition and fees about 14,500.
Per year or for the entire program?
No, for the program.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
What I know that you had said that the recommended courses for anyone that doesn't have any experience coming on were the ABA 3301 and 02. What about with not having any experience with any kind of special education? That my background is education, but there's no specializations behind it. So kind of going into the program with not really any experience in that field.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not planning to start the program in the fall, I would definitely encourage you to take at least that 3301, which is the intro class, because it gives you, an opportunity to kind of experience that information at more the undergraduate level. And then that way you could feel like you're more prepared. However, we know that this is going to be the first cohort and that people might not necessarily have a background, as all of this is new. And so that will be taken into account as we're, offering the first courses, and, knowing that people kind of have a little bit more learning curve, if you will. So, yeah.
And I have another question. I have a lot of questions, but
yes, go ahead.
Pace. Can you just, what would a day look like in the work, in the field of someone that's actually, finished, and what does it look like to be working? Something that more or less that you might do, maybe somebody from the beginning or, the middle evaluation, something like that.
Like, what will your day look like if you were a behavior analyst?
Yes.
When you are a behavior analyst. Okay, I'm actually going to ask Sarika if she's available, maybe to talk about what a typical day for her maybe for Amanda, her BCBA, because Sarika is she's a BCBA, but she's the owner, and so her role is a little bit different. But Sarika, maybe if you can talk a little bit about what that BCBA role would be, and just kind of give them an idea, at least in a clinic setting.
Okay, hello. I'm actually still here at the clinic. But like Berenice, Dr. De La Cruz said, I am the owner, so I tend to be here before everybody and leave after everybody. But basically, I mean, right now, like our summer schedule, in session, both direct, which would be like and I'm going to just say this so that later on when you hear this, you're like, oh, okay, now I know what she's talking about. For 97153, it's a CPT code that the insurance uses for billing. And so it's direct one-on-one services with your client based on the treatment goals and plans. And then half the day is also supervision, and that's at our clinic. And so we have 3 other BCBAs here, and their day looks very similar in that they do a few direct hours per day, meaning they have their own assigned clients that they work with, and then they supervise the other portion of the day. Oftentimes we assign BCBAs some of the more sensitive or more I'm going to use the word severe, some of our more severe clients, in that they need more attention from or intervention from a BCBA versus a technician. And then once we've seen improvement, then we transition them to one of our technicians. But from start to finish, it looks like evals are completed by a BCBA. They determine the recommendations for the goals and the treatment hours. Then that gets passed on to the next person that would then call for authorization from insurance to determine if it is authorized, and then start date would start. And so the first few weeks, the BCBA is very hands-on with making sure that the tech and the client are a good match for each other. And then treatment plan is implemented, which basically means, what are the strategies that we're going to be using to make sure it's going to be effective learning for the client, and effective strategies for the therapist to see progress. We use Catalyst at our clinic. So that's an online program. We transitioned from paper to Catalyst. That was a transition for a lot of our therapists too, including myself. And so supervision is done by the BCBA on a daily, if not weekly basis. And that's supervision of treatment, and which then can be applied to your, BCBA supervision hours. And so we actually have 3 BCBA trainees here right now that are working towards their BCBA certification, and they are scheduled both indirect and direct hours, so they can count them towards their certification. And so what their indirect hours look like is they work on programming, they work on goals, they work on analyzing data, and then helping out some of our RBTs or techs with their program as well. But from start to finish in a day or in the life of a client, it's a eval, treatment plan, supervision on a weekly basis to make sure that we are seeing progress. And if we don't see progress, then the BCBA, basically helps identify where there might be a kink in the program, or what could be more effective for the client and the family. And then parent training. As a BCBA, you get to do a lot of parent training too. And that's one of my favorite things to do, which I do on Saturdays and Sundays. So going back to how to accumulate some of those hours, our clinic is available on Saturdays and Sundays to help with that too, because we do know we have a lot of students out there that are teachers or have other professional jobs that need help with acquiring those hours. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Sarika.
Yes, thank you.
So that's kind of, that instance, we have people that are working in homes and in communities that'll look a little bit different, but still within the same services. And then people that are, work within education. So, that might be the behavior interventionists or actual classroom teachers as well. But that was a great question. Okay, what other questions do you guys have?
Is there any assistance at the end as far as like job placement or anything along those lines?
Yes, and throughout, really my goal is that everybody will have I realize that most of the students are in need of having a paid job. I was there myself. And so, my goal is that, we'll be able to either use your place of work already or place you in a site where, like Sarika's place, where, you can provide a needed service that's already needed and already be getting your training. And, possibly already, then, once you become a BCBA, a lot of times people just end up staying in those places and help continue to grow and expand that agency itself. So there's a lot of need. We really don't have a challenge getting people to have jobs. We have people I have people reaching out to me all the time and asking me for, do I know somebody that can, have this job? It really is a great place to be a behavior analyst. There's a lot of need for that. And we're all we're a very small community, so we're really, connected. We kind of all know each other here in San Antonio. We have a group called Alamo City Behavior Analyst. We try to get together regularly and try to, build that community. And I want students to have that from the very beginning here in our community of San Antonio. But, Texas, so I talked about Tex ABA, we have a conference every year. Next year, actually, it's going to be here in San Antonio. I'm excited about that. So people don't need to travel but they can connect with other people across the state. And then we have our international conferences. And so it's pretty easy to get connected with people and jobs. So good question. Other questions?
Dr. De La Cruz,
Yes.
I would like to know, like right now, the populations that are served is mostly white, or it's like a little bit of everything?
The people that are served by behavior analysts?
Yes.
Well, I would say this. When we were just looking at, servicing individuals before Medicaid started covering in February, which is still not, a fully inaccessible benefit because there's not enough providers signed up yet. So, that would be that everybody who has insurance and has an autism diagnosis, for example, can get access to ABA therapy. And so that really does, limit some of the people that are able to work with. However, even then programs have existed, for us to be able to work with other populations as well as, working in the schools that service everyone. So I would like to say that, we are able to service everyone, but I also acknowledge that, especially in the past, but really, still currently, there might be, a lenience, not just because, like funding kind of drives some of that service delivery. And that's why it became so important to really work on Medicaid and making sure that, we were having equitable coverage for everyone. And that's why one of my big goals with the program is not just to build more behavior analysts to work in the community, which we do need that as well, but also to build behavior analysts to equip them to work in our schools. We really, all of our children go to school, and we need to have people that are ready to provide those services. And I think oftentimes we don't have enough people working there, and because there's all sorts of challenges, but sometimes it's just not enough opportunity or supervision. And that's why we've already been, before the program has started, already been building those relationships to hopefully, begin to facilitate that and building, capacity within each of the school districts.
Okay. I'm asking because Spanish is my first language. And I'm a teacher also. And sometimes I see that my community, like, they don't want to accept that there's a problem. So they don't get the services that kids need.
Yes.
So that's why I was asking about like the population that is served right now.
Well, there's a lot of needs. So I am bilingual as well. Actually, Spanish is my first language. And there's a lot of need for our community, and, starting with, even just getting a diagnosis. There are all sorts of challenges with that. But, I've worked with a lot of different families from different backgrounds, but a lot of Hispanic families as well. And it really definitely continues to be an area of need, and for bilingual services and people that can provide services in the same language. So yes, I acknowledge that the challenges continue, but I think that has definitely grown, and the way that we approach it becomes really important, which I think is the same even within our school districts. And, trust goes a long way. And so, me telling you as a professional that you might need ABA therapy is not the same as your comadre, telling you that, this is someone that you can trust. And I think that's why it becomes important that we are part of the community, and that we are seen as being part of the community, and not just as professionals, but, really, really out there, and that, we've built a good reputation in being able to provide good services, because that's how we get more families to want to get the services that they need, and also just making them part of that process, right? So it's not that we're coming to tell them what to do, but that we're coming to work with them to, make things better for their children.
Yes.
Great
Thank you very
question.
much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question to add to that?
Of course.
So like I'm a dual language teacher, so I have kids who weren't getting services in their native language. So in order for us to service kids, do we have in like a specific language? Like my students who are considered native Spanish speakers, they would get their services in Spanish. Do we need to have like a specialized like certification for that? Or as long as we're certified behavior analysis, we can do it in whatever language?
I love that question. That just speaks to how we still have a ways to go. No, we don't have any specialization that's needed, not even for autism. They talked about like creating a specific requirement for autism in addition to the BCBA, but we're just still so new if you think about it. I mean, 22 years is how long we've been doing certification. Texas has been doing licensure for what, 2-3 years? I just renewed my license. So 2 years, this is a third year. It's all really new. We're very, new field of practicing compared to other fields. So we're just not there yet. But I love that question because yes, can you imagine as we grow, that's where we want to be able to specialize more in making sure that people have access to that. So for now, everyone, we just have to try to make the education as broad as possible to meet those needs. Thank you.
Thank you. That's actually pretty awesome because you don't need you can't just go teach Spanish. You have to have like certification.
Yeah.
So it's nice to know that you can do it just because there's no boundary, I guess, yet.
Yeah. And yeah, no. So it's just, I mean, we have our ethical code. And so if you have the training to do that, then it's kind of left up to us to know and seek those things out. Yeah.
And one thing, if I can add, and one thing that it's great about being the BCBA on the program or as part of the treatment plan is that when you meet your families at the initial assessment, those are some of those questions that you ask, what language is spoken in the home, or if there's anything that we teach, is there a preference on how we teach it as well? So when we talk about clothing articles, we do it culturally based, so not everyone wears t-shirt and jeans, so we'll ask family members, what are the clothing articles that you want us to teach your kiddo based on what they would experience on a day-to-day basis, or what are the foods, not everybody eats pizza and hamburgers and hot dogs, and so those are some of the things that during your initial assessment you ask and be culturally aware of, that there are a lot of differences, and that's a great part of the ethics code too, is keeping that in mind and having training in that area as well.
I'm muted. I realize that we are all out of time. I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes if people have questions. I know there was a question about the BS degree plan. I went ahead and put a link to it. We do actually already have it posted on our website. And if you have any more questions and want to follow up with me on that, please feel free to do so. So I thank you guys all so much for your time and your interest in the program. As I said, I'll stay on for a few more minutes, but if you have any questions in the future, don't hesitate to reach out to me by email or phone, and I'm happy to take any of those questions. Remember, the deadline, if you're interested in applying for fall admission, is July 15th. And you guys, I think just need to be cognizant of that deadline, because if you guys are all alumni, then you are in a good spot for transcripts not taking so long. So
yeah, I want to echo Dr. De La Cruz. Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. It's been thrilling to listen to your questions and the engagement and all of that. So if you have any alumni office suggestions for me, get them my way, but you know who the expert is on the program. So certainly reach out about that. When I'm in possession of the PowerPoint slides, I will get them to you. When I'm in possession of the recording, I will get that to you. Okay. Anything else for the good of the group? Well, thank you so much, and have a good rest of your evening.
thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So like this year, for example, I had a kid who all of a sudden it got really difficult. So he ended up having psychosis. And it was things like, it was my first year teaching too. So all of a sudden it was like from 0 to like, I'm seeing things. And then I had a student who had anger issues as well. So I had to deal with like the behavior specialist